With the front page of the Standard, and we'll just put that up for you. Sugar wars spark tensions in Jubilee is what you find on the front page. Illegal consignments popping up everywhere. Ruto's top allies see crackdown as skewed against them. They want disclosure from Treasury on licenses issued during elections. And sucked into unfolding war are the political barons on both sides of Jubilee. Let me just tell you a little bit about what's happening on page 6, which is where the story is. So page 6 has, let me see, about 3 or 4 different headlines regarding matters sugar. Sugar wars spark heat amongst allies of Uhuru Ruto. So sensitive is the matter, according to one of the writers here, that it has raised tension with politicians in either camp not willing to publicly make statements that may be seen as openly targeting the opposite figures. And we're all talking about one party. Meanwhile, consumers, you and I are the ones who pay the price, as country is awash with fakes. And how tax waiver triggered sugar war at Kenya's port. And if I can just briefly mention this, the raging sugar wars in the country escalated yesterday with a sugar company whose consignment is under probe defending its imports. The seizure of the West Kenya Sugar Company's consignment at Webuye's pan paper in Western Kenya has introduced a new angle. And of course, the tax waiver seems to have been one of the reasons how this all happened. And West Kenya Sugar yesterday took time to explain what happened from their perspective, and really a lot of revelations coming out in this. Yesterday, I saw you, Mheshimiwa, in Parliament talking quite strongly about this. First of all, how from what we saw on TV, this actually looked quite hidden, and I'm going to ask if we can play the story shortly. But really, what was going on?
What do you mean what is going on? We're talking about sugar.
I mean, just out of the blue, we suddenly see, is this a debate that should have happened before and hasn't happened? How come yesterday we really saw this emotion amongst members of the National Assembly?
I think sugar affects everybody, you and I, and even for those who don't take sugar in their tea, they find that they might eat a piece of cake, and that has sugar. So Honorable Osotsi actually brought a motion of adjournment because he thought, like all the MPs thought, that this is a matter of national interest and a grave issue that affects all Kenyans. So he asked for a motion of adjournment so that we discuss the issue of sugar. And that's how come at 5:30 p.m. we went into discussion about sugar and what's happening in the country.
You are not in Jubilee, but the handshake, many feel, has, for all intents and purposes, unified the political class. What is going on when you see politicians who previously stood side by side now, in a sense, trading accusations?
I think for me, the funniest thing was that this now ended up being like a war within the Jubilee party, you know? And yet we know that the sugar-growing counties or sugar-growing areas are really not Jubilee areas. But now this became a Jubilee war because now this is a war of traders and people who import sugar, you know? And it was very clear that each side was each side of Jubilee, because Jubilee basically has 2 sides. They deny that they have 2 sides. Well, initially they had 2 sides, and that was what was playing out. Each side really wanted to show that it's the other side that had licenses, and it's the other side that's bringing in sugar, the wrong sugar or the contraband sugar. But for us on the NASA side, if I may say so, we were more concerned about the impact of the contraband sugar that's been brought and the impact that it has on wananchi and the impact that it also has on our sugar industries. That was our main issue. Tell me what's happening on the ground. What are people telling you about this whole sugar? First of all, let me tell you that I'm a product of sugar. My father was a sugar farmer. I went to school out of proceeds from sugar. And it's just not me. Many families depend on sugar. But right now what is happening is most of the sugar industries are closed. We have Miwani has gone down. We have Muroni was recently closed. We have Chemelil has gone down. And when you go back to Western Kenya, we also have, what is it called? Mumias, yes. And we have Trans Nzoia. And these are this is where most of the population in these areas actually earn their livelihood from the sugar industry. So everything is at a standstill in terms of economy in those areas. So for us, that's very emotional. Now, when you tell us that it's now even moving from sugar industries closing and it's moving to lives being threatened, really we have to stop and say, what is it? You can make money. You can make money in those corrupt ways if that's what you want to do, but you cannot play with the lives of Kenyans because you want to make money.
Who is playing with the lives of Kenyans, in your view?
It is the government who should actually find out who's playing, because the government has the machinery to know who they gave license to, who brought in sugar, and they also have the machinery to know that what type of sugar did you bring. Look at it this way: you're having a cup of water.
No sugar. This is water.
Mine is coffee with no sugar. But in 90% of the homes this morning, 90% of the Kenyan population are actually taking in sugar.
That's right.
Now, should that sugar be laced with mercury or copper or whatever it is, that means 90% of the population are killing themselves slowly. The government's responsibility is to protect its citizens. Once there is already an inch of doubt or suspicion that there's something wrong with that sugar, the government should move in and do away with that sugar, regardless of how much it costs whoever imported that sugar. Because the ultimate mandate of the government is to protect its people, not to protect its traders.
Last night on this same table here, Honorable Kanini Kega, who I think heads an investments committee in Parliament, was in the middle of an interview, and he said that his committee spoke to KEBS, and they have not carried out any tests on any sugar to find out whether it has mercury or not. So in a sense, he was questioning, where did Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i get the data to make claims that sugar might be laced with mercury and copper? And again, this is where now it's becoming confusing.
It is becoming confusing because we are missing the point here. You know, it's not whether Matiang'i did it right or whether Matiang'i said the right thing or whether Matiang'i had facts. The fact that it has come out and there's that suspicion alone should set the government acting. At least that's what I think.
What do you hope to see today, for example?
I think today there's going to be a bit of activity.
More than yesterday?
I think there will be a bit of activity. There will be activity because there will be activity on Jubilee sides, even if it's hidden, but there will be lots of activity. There will be activity.
That's a warning or sort of like a headline. Stay tuned.
When you warn, you don't smile. But
okay, do we have that story? I want us to just take a look at what happened yesterday in the National Assembly. And it all began with Majority Leader Aden Duale. He came out quite strongly in a tone and manner we haven't seen him speaking in, for the last couple of weeks. And
he mentioned names very categorically. Names. Oh, with quantities and he mentioned names. He was very categorical.
Is he now a whistleblower?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's play the story first. Then we'll come back and talk a bit more about this. What are your views? Also, talk to us. 2242 is our SMS line. Use the hashtag Power Breakfast. But first things first, here is that report.
And get information.
Point taken.
Let us not belittle the House. Let us not belittle members of Parliament.
The sugar debate turned sour on the floor of the National Assembly during an adjournment motion moved by nominated lawmaker Godfrey Osotsi. MPs training their guns on Interior CS Dr. Fred Matiang'i over the ongoing crackdown. Majority Leader Aden Duale alleging that millions of bags in various warehouses are yet to be seized as the government allegedly protects some well-connected individuals.
The culprit is in town walking free, and we want to be told who is this guy who is protecting him. The same guy, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, he's the biggest logger in our country. Biggest logger. He's the guy who finished our forest. And he has been made, he is a member of the board of Kenya Forest Service. Ridiculous, it is ridiculous. Of course, when you hear pan paper, you know who the owner is.
The CS for Interior, he came to the media and said that he had impounded sacks and sacks of sugar. We want action. These people are known. They should be arrested.
Duale also firing at Treasury CS Henry Rotich for allegedly awarding duty-free licenses to some importers who have crippled the sugar industry in Western Kenya.
We really want the committee to call Henry Rotich. We want each and every importer who was given duty-free, even if it is Honorable Junet's friend, let him come before the committee and account for the sugar he brought.
This sugar did not come from the skies. It did not come out of earth. This sugar passed through entry points, Madam Speaker. It came through the port, either through other borders.
We want Honorable Duale to help the hard-working, no-nonsense CS, Fred Matiang'i, with this information we're giving us, and you'll see arrest tomorrow.
I'll carefully listen to the CS National Treasury here in his revenue-raising measures when he alluded to the fact that they want to now drop duty
10 seconds
on timber that is being imported from outside at a time we are asking Kenyans not to log.
Some legislators claiming that some MPs are involved in the illicit sugar trade.
I hear people talking about cartels. Interestingly, these cartels are made up of people, some of whom are even in this house. Yes. We must learn to call a spade a spade. They are members of this house.
Government has the machinery to find out who it is that imports this sugar. But if the government stands to protect a few individuals for whatever gains they get from those individuals, the government is lying to Kenyans.
Duale has pledged to make public names of individuals it termed as untouchable barons on Wednesday. The MPs debated the saga after a week of raids on warehouses where sugar said to be contaminated with mercury and copper was seized.
As we speak.
No, there's nothing out of honorable.
You need to protect me.
There's nothing out of order.
Yes.
There's nothing out of order.
Cartels.
Stephen Leto, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The last word I heard Honorable Duale shouting was cartels, and Rosa Buyu says if you thought you saw action yesterday, there might be a bit more today, especially on matters to do with sugar. My goodness.
It might not be in Parliament for everybody to see, because we are not going to discuss that again, but there's going to be activity even in the government circles, because it's been pointed out and it's clear to Kenyans, and it's causing apprehension that is this sugar right or is this sugar not right? You know, and obviously it's also going to cause apprehension amongst the traders who have the stock.
Yes. And
everybody will now be scared of taking that stock. So there's anxiety all around, and the government must act to stop that anxiety.
You say you grew up, you know, because of proceeds from sugar.
Oh, yes, I did.
What worked then that isn't working now?
First of all, let me say this. It's just become more and more expensive to produce sugar in this country. And the government has not protected its industries. Instead, it has let that high cost of production affect the prices of sugar that the local markets would have. Instead of cushioning that, and instead of doing what they need to do, what the government easily does is allow people to import sugar. Now, when you allow people to import sugar from wherever they import that sugar, unscrupulously, without even thinking of your own market, you kill your own industry. You have machines that need to be upgraded. Probably your sugar industries do not have the capacity to upgrade them. If you're a government that is concerned about its people, you're supposed to help it upgrade. What is industrialization all about? You're supposed to help them upgrade so that whatever they produce can compete fairly. But when you quickly run, and this has happened with so many other industries, not only sugar. We saw what happened with the cotton industry, and that also collapsed. We saw coffee and that is collapsing. So the government wants to industrialize, but at the same time kills its own industries at the expense of, in preference for products that are coming from out of the country because of greed. So
what does this then say, in your view, about the direction of the Big Four, for example?
I think we are not serious about the Big Four. Because if you are serious about the Big Four, these are the issues you're supposed to tackle. You cannot talk about industrialization when you kill your industries. You cannot talk about industrialization when you don't pay adequate attention to your mining industry, for example. How do you hope to get industrialized? You know, so we say words without actually going to the bottom of what can make those words become a reality. That is my issue. We sing songs, and those songs sound beautiful to the ears of everybody without really being serious about the things we need to put in place, the ducks we need to have in a row to ensure that those songs become a reality. So for me, when you kill your industries, you're not going to industrialize.
You're not going to industrialize.
You will not industrialize. And it doesn't matter whether those industries are in Western Kenya, which you perceive as not being your support base. It doesn't matter. When you kill them, you're killing the industries in Kenya.